It came from Mr. Joe. It
Okay.
must be.
Delegate.
It's like designee and delegate
Designee, yeah.
all in one.
Oh, those lawyers.
Oh, this one. I think they meant designee.
All right. And then purchase price not to exceed $980,000.
Okay.
If I get a motion to make those particular changes,
Mr. Chair.
Madam Vice Chair.
The 980,000 is going to go to who and for what?
Madam Vice Chair, that will clear the liens on the property. So all of those are liens. So actually, nothing goes to Care 66, and all is to clear those liens.
Is there a way to clarify that it'll go to pay the liens? Because when you do the due diligence process, I'm sure there's the title search that's going to
Right.
show up and making sure that we're not obligated sometime in the future.
So we have completed the title search. We do have a list of all the liens. There is back taxes, there's unpaid utilities, there's a variety that Mr. Joe has looked through.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we can certainly get a listing of all those liens for you.
I think just to point out, because some of the stuff is kind of like technical talk, but what we're talking about too, the LoRa's land use restriction agreement. And those should be signed on all these NAHASDA projects, and they haven't been. And so as we're going and cleaning up many of these items, that was one of the things we noted, that it's a real issue having these LoRa's not being signed. And so as we're moving forward, we're doing the cleanup work, but any projects going forward, making sure that this stuff is already signed, because it's very hard to get after the fact. But it basically enables NHA to go back in if the person is not utilizing the property in the fashion that they asked for the funds for. Then we have the ability to go back and recall it and put it under our operation and make sure that it is used for that. And so in that sense, the purpose we're repurposing this for with Rehoboth will fall under our you know, the way we'd like this to be used. But it's really kind of comes down to that, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So
where's this money coming from? Because there's no account on here. It doesn't say whether it's NPI or, you know, we're taking in
Well,
cans. I don't know.
I think it would have to be NPI because we're not allowed to respend NAHASDA money on NAHASDA money. So.
That needs to be put in this document. And I'd
No,
like
in
the
the
first,
title.
I think the title needs to include the monetary amount as well.
Yeah. And the source of funding.
So,
Mr. Chair, just to add to your statement, I think also when you sign in LoRa, they're not allowed to get loans off of the property that
Right.
they, and
Yeah.
I think that that's been the case. So we're having to pay loans that they got without our authorization or approval.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
So, real quick, I don't know if I'm reading this wrong, but is the resolution approving the expenditure of 980, or is it approving going forward with due diligence? It looks like it's just going forward with due diligence.
Yeah.
Mr. Joe's been involved in the closing process, and they're ready to close. What they needed was a resolution from the board authorizing the expense, and they needed somebody authorized to sign on the closing documents.
Okay, to close the okay.
Right.
Okay. So this is a resolution to actually go through with the transaction.
Purchase, correct.
Okay.
so if we could also add that to the amendment that we're talking about, adding the source of funding and the amount into the title.
From NPI.
Yeah.
Any other additional changes?
Chair, I was just curious if in number 6 here, the ratification and approval of the purchase agreement, if that wouldn't be done after number 2, the completion of NHA's due diligence review and inspections, and then ratify and approve.
See, that's what I'm saying.
It's just a strange flow of activity.
It's all jumbled together like delegate.
From the legal aspect, what I'd ask is that, as part of the amendment, that's clarified, that we make sure that's in the correct order.
Okay.
Obviously, those two things do need to happen, but we can just say,
one
look,
before the other.
please have legal make sure that this is the correct order, and you can actually do that as a technical amendment.
Okay.
Any further comments or questions?
Mr. Chair.
Madam Vice Chair.
This purchase agreement, is that something that NHA designed?
No, Madam Vice Chair, the purchase agreement came from the Realtor, so.
From the Realtor?
It's a New Mexico purchase agreement.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Was the agreement reviewed by Patterson?
Yes, it was.
Any further comments or questions?
Well, normally I would make sure that, you know, the description here has been reviewed too, but I don't know who's reviewed this on our side.
Patterson did?
Patterson, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Whose initial is under buyer on the agreement?
Under buyer? That's me.
CD?
Oh, Craig?
Yeah, CD.
And you said the title's been cleared?
Title, it has a number of liens on it. Those are to be cleared in the closing. So those are back taxes, unpaid utilities, a couple of bank loans, things like that.
Here's Patterson's signature here.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, then should somewhere we indicate that it either goes to the lien holder, or because you wouldn't want it to go to the LLC, it just seems, I mean, isn't there a Realtor involved in this? That's the middle
So there are
person?
attorneys involved, and our attorneys involved, and what happens in closing is all of the liens are cleared before the title is transferred. So they got to pay off every one of those liens on the property. That's the 980.
And what if they don't?
That's a part of the closing process. So it'll be paid by the escrow account.
It's going to go into escrow?
It goes to escrow,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, that's
Yes.
my point.